G'day everyone and welcome to another Azure RoundUP session today. I'm really excited because we get our first
external
Microsoft trainer here, Ahmad Mozaffar. Ahmad, welcome to the session today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for hosting me today. I'm very happy to be here.
We've also got Yas and George, who's from our Microsoft Technical Trainer team here in Melbourne. I thought I might as well bring someone who knows something about development to this session. So welcome Yas as well, and thanks for joining us.
Hey folks, glad to be here.
All right, and Ahmad, you have got your own YouTube channel called AK Academy, which I'll put on a link somewhere here or there for people and in the details. Really successful channel with about 4,500 viewers. So most of you viewers who are watching will probably already know you. So you are going to cover off developing modern web apps with .NET and Blazor today. And I'm personally excited about it because I didn't really know anything about Blazor until you suggested this session. So yeah, thank you very much, mate. And let me just hand over to you so you can start the session.
Okay, that's awesome. So let me get started by introducing myself to you. Basically, I'm currently a Microsoft certified trainer, and this is why I'm presenting this in this channel. And alongside, I'm doing I usually do a full stack .NET development in multiple places as a contractor and as a full-time developer. So basically, I do Blazor almost 50% of my week, and the other 50% is Azure and some cool cloud stuff from Microsoft. So today we are going to talk about this amazing technology to show that developers who are either they are a JS developer or they are a new developers for web, how they can build an amazing, modern, rich user experience. An application with a rich user experience actually with Blazor, and we can see the differences between it and Blazor Server or the hosting models available, and we can see a quick demo about that. Okay, so I will start right now. We will have just a few slides to talk in general and introduce some stuff, and then we can move to Visual Studio and see an amazing demo. So here we are. What the topic that we are going to cover in this session is actually, first we will start by what is Blazor, just to give an introduction. Then we will talk about the different hosting models that Blazor provides, WebAssembly and Blazor Server. Then we will just make a very quick introduction for SPA and PWA, or single page applications and progressive web apps. What are those topics that actually you can do with Blazor WebAssembly? Then we will answer the question, why Blazor over JavaScript, this is the most common question that you will be asked as a developer, as a Blazor developer. And then we will see a demo and take a look at some of the amazing things that the community is doing actually right now related to Blazor. So first of all, what is Blazor WebAssembly? What is Blazor, let's say, before Blazor WebAssembly? Blazor is a modern .NET framework that actually allowing .NET developers to be able to build modern web applications that actually a single page application or single page applications like apps. So and the powerful point of this, you can write this application that runs fully in the client using C# instead of JavaScript. So this is the main goal of Blazor, and this is why it's there. So it's using the UI components pattern. So your UI is consisting of multiple components. We are going to see that in a bit. So you are able actually to build the projects that has multiple UI components that you can share across your project and solution, or maybe you can put them somewhere and other people from all over the world that could bring them and use them directly out of the box. I put it on NuGet or something like that. And because you're developing your web application with .NET, even the client side, then you have the ability to take advantage of the already existing code that you already have written and just put it out there and go ahead. So this is a big development, cut the development time. And instead of, in addition to all the power, at the end of the day, you can still call the power of JavaScript to do some stuff for you in the browser, or to manipulate the DOM in a way or another that actually not directly possible in the UI, or if you are trying to do something which is facing the browser directly at the end of the day, like for example talking to the storage or something like this, those are things provided to you by the browser, but JavaScript is able to communicate with that. So you can do this communication between C# and JavaScript, and vice versa. Also, you can call C# methods from JavaScript. We are going to see some samples about this. Now, it's very important to...
Ahmad, just give me a second here. I think you've raised a few really good points, and I wanted to ask a few questions for audiences to sort of understand where the Blazor fits in the .NET world. So if you want to go back a few years, probably people heard of Silverlight. How do you compare Blazor with Silverlight? How do we make sure that it's not, again, another failed attempt to bring C# into the client side?
Actually, well, yeah, that's a good question. Silverlight, first of all, it has a little bit or many downsides if you compare it to Blazor. First of all, it was using, it wasn't an open source, which is something that not too many developer likes, and actually, and this doesn't as well give the developers the ability to innovate, like what you can see in Blazor now. Now there is a bunch of libraries, a bunch of amazing things that you can find on a NuGet and GitHub that could help your development. That wasn't there in the days of Silverlight. And number two, with the Blazor, you are just following the standards of the web. You are designing your UI with HTML, CSS, and those are the amazing markup language for the UI with that styling that everyone likes, actually. And you are just following the standard, while in Silverlight, you are just doing some XAML things and something that only .NET developers and the passionate about .NET developers actually interested in this. In addition for that, Blazor is much reliable, and because at the end of the day, you are, as I've said, this is the most important thing. You are going with the standards, and WebAssembly is actually agreed and supported right now by all the modern browsers, that wasn't always the case in the case of Silverlight. So those are actually the points. So I don't see that this is another failing attempt, because Microsoft is going with the direction of, before with Silverlight, it was like a very isolated framework that existing out there. Only the lovers of .NET will use it. While Blazor right now, yes, the lovers of .NET will definitely use it like me. But at the end of the day, even the GS developers, there is many reasons to switch, and they will stay somehow in the same environment. They are not going to go to another world. They will be able to write some HTML and CSS to have an amazing and fancy UI.
Thanks for that. Thanks. That's really great. The other thing that I wanted to raise was, if you want to compare it to JavaScript frameworks, apparently the initial page load size is going to be much bigger than a normal SPA application. Is that true?
Actually, that's somehow right. If you are talking about the Blazor WebAssembly, which is running actually fully on the client, there is some dependencies that has to be downloaded to the browser, but I don't see that an issue, because first of all, Blazor is doing a great job in compressing those files, and they are being loaded only one time. So basically, the browser is actually caching those files. So this is increasing the speed of the loading. In addition for that, like right now in 2021, the internet connection is very fast. So talking about 1 megabyte or 2 megabyte is something. It's almost equals to zero, when it comes to the download size. So the current Blazor WebAssembly apps after .NET 5, they are very fast, and this is not a big downside. And another comparison with JavaScript, they are still having the same UI component structure. They are similar in this, but there's also some differences I'm going to talk about in details in the section of why Blazor over GS.
Yeah, sure. Continue. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So Blazor, as I've said, give us two hosting models, WebAssembly and Blazor Server. So what is the difference? Let's start by talking about Blazor WebAssembly. As you can see, this is your browser. So when you request the application, all the application comes into your browser. So here you have the Razor components and the .NET. Over the WebAssembly, they are going to be executed, and then you can manipulate the DOM. So your application is 100% working on the client in your browser. And this gives a lot of actually advantages. We are going to talk about that. While the Blazor Server is actually, this is a genius trick by Microsoft, but it gives you a single page application like feeling, but it's not actually at the end of the day a single page application, because you are seeing the DOM being dynamically changing based on the data, which is actually what SPA does. There is no request and waiting for the HTML to come back from the server. But here, actually, all the rendering stuff and the components are running on the server, and they are being rendered over there, but they are using the signaler to communicate with the client and update the UI. And so this also has some advantages and disadvantages. And actually, let's start first by the advantages and disadvantages of Blazor WebAssembly. The first and big one is your application is fully on the client. This means it's fast. This means it's it could support the offline. Like for example, if there is no internet connection, or if your app is not doing something related, communicating with an API, there is many applications like this. For example, I use a Markdown editor called Stack Edit. So it's a web application. I have it offline. I deal with it all the time because it doesn't need internet. It's a single page applications and native actually. Of course, because it's all running in the client and you have all the libraries out there, no dependencies on the server, then you have a very good user experience and performance. And at the end of the day, you don't need a server actually to deploy your web. You can just put it in any static hosting and that's going to work, like Azure storage, static web apps and so on. But because of this, there is also on the other side some disadvantages, like it's harder to debug. You're not taking the full capabilities of Visual Studio and debugging because it's running in the browser and the debugging is happening through a remote debugger with the browser and so on. And at the end of the day, there is some JavaScript things playing here. So it's good. You can debug, you can put breakpoints, but not in the same efficiency that you can do in normal .NET apps. Yeah, there is taking some time to load for the first time. Not too much, but yeah, if you compare it to other GS apps, there is some few seconds. And because it's running fully on the client, then you don't have, or you partially have a search engine optimization, right? So this is actually one of the downsides. But when it comes to business applications, normally like no one care about SEO because, well, if we talk about Blazor Server, okay, it's very easy to debug. And it gives you, one of the good things is because at the end of the day, it's an ASP.NET Core app. So actually you have the backend out there existing already. And through SignalR and this magical stuff that's happening, you have a SPA-like application. So this is a good thing. You don't need to have two separate applications, API and the client, and host them differently and so on. So this is a very great advantage. And because it's running on the server, you have a great search engine optimization. But the disadvantages is actually it requires a server with a .NET runtime to be able to run your application, because at the end of the day, it's an ASP.NET Core app. There is a latency because everything you do in the UI is actually going to the server and bring it back through a signals. And if there is too many users, or if the server is not that efficient, there is going to be some latency, and this requires actually high-speed internet connection to not feel it. But it's good somehow to use it when you are building an application internally for a company or for something that will be used by a specific amount of users. It's great, and it's good when we're building desktop apps with Ilkitron. We're going to have a different session about this. And yeah, so the same latency with the big communication between the browser and the server, because everything, even clicking a button, this will go to the server and bring it back, the result. So it's not that efficient, actually.
That's really a great point, Ahmad. Could you do like a mix of the server side and the client side? Let's say you wanted to do, I don't know, server side rendering for part of those pages where you wanted to have a better SEO and you wanted to leave the rest for the server side. Could you do that mix as well?
Actually, yes, you can do that with Blazor WebAssembly and your API. You can render some pages and serve them. This also enhanced the SEO a little bit as well. And this is still an option in Blazor WebAssembly. You can have this advantage. And in addition for that, we have the lazy loading, which is in some cases when you have some component that there is no need to be there in your application until you need them. So this enhances the runtime of the application and the performance, the size, and so on.
That's great.
Yeah, Mark, can I ask a quick question? It's the infrastructure guy in me. When you've got a server backend, does anyone have to set it up? Does it have to, if we're thinking about Azure, for example, do I have to set up an IaaS VM with that .NET backend, or have you ever used Blazor with something like a web app that's got a .NET framework loaded?
Yeah, of course. If you are talking about the Azure, of course you can have your VM with the server setting up, and you can just create an app service with .NET runtime and just go ahead.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, mate.
Thanks. So there is two important aspects actually in the client-side development for modern web. They are SPA and PWA. So SPA is the abbreviation for single-page applications, which is actually refers to any modern application that runs fully on the client, and it gives a feeling like it's a desktop app while it's in the browser. It's very fast. There is no refreshing. It's not going to the server and coming back every time, and it's dynamically updating the content of the page in a way that you don't feel that it's like the traditional web apps. When you click something, the request goes, the server loads, the browser, and then brings the page back to you ready as it is. Here, just updating the part that should be updated. So, and now SPA is everywhere actually. Almost all the applications like GitHub, Azure itself, the modern Office online, and so on. So every modern application is actually now a SPA. PWA is actually part of this. Okay, so that. So PWA or progressive web apps. This is when you this technology allows us to build a web application, like for example, a SPA application with Blazor or with React.js, AngularJS, or whatever. And this application could be installed on the supported platforms, which actually all the modern OS and devices actually support this. So you could take advantage of that capabilities to run the application directly from your home screen. It runs like in its own UI, so it feels like a native desktop application, and it could run offline, and you could access some OS capabilities like the notifications, server notifications, even if your browser is closed. So it's a very great thing that we can definitely do with Blazor WebAssembly, build amazing single-page applications and progressive web apps. So before we move to the demo, this is the last point that we want to cover, which is actually it's very important. So why Blazor over JS? This is the question that everyone asks. Actually, there is some reasons you cannot compare because all with the market out there and all with the need for everything. But the first point is that if there is already a .NET developers like me, I was one of those developers, and I don't like JavaScript because I'm already used for the .NET ecosystem, for that amazing package manager, for that amazing IDE, for all the stuff. So I don't see any reason actually why to switch to JavaScript and start dealing with that bunch amount of packages and dealing with those stuff. Actually was complicated for me. I don't like it. This is from my personal perspective, and I think every .NET developer had the same opinion. This is one thing. So for existing .NET developer, you can just take advantage of your capabilities and go ahead, build those awesome apps. The other great advantage of Blazor is actually with Blazor, you have the .NET ecosystem. This is the Blazor, and you can build SPA applications. While in JavaScript, okay, there is JavaScript, it could be TypeScript, and you have a bunch of frameworks. And actually, every framework is something totally different from the other. Like you have React.js, you have Vue.js, Vanilla.js, Angular, and actually each one needs a specific set of experience and set of knowledge and set of skills. Actually, it's different from other. At the end of the day, they are shared with the components perspective, but they are different stuff. And also, every version of them sometimes is very different than the old version, especially when it comes to Angular, for example, which is actually making a trouble staying up to date. You need always to stay ahead with the knowledge, you have to training and all those things. While in Blazor, you are with the .NET, and it's supported by Microsoft first, and now it's open source, the community is always there. So the updates is getting, which is one of the big advantages of .NET in general, that actually it's getting updates yearly because it's supported by a big company. And so you always feel safe about this. And also the community is out there to do amazing things.
So I'm talking about frameworks. How is the integration with the current frameworks? Can you do like a .NET framework mixed with other framework, or can you run it along with a ASP.NET application? Can you do like a one page inside another bigger application just with Blazor, like a component?
Yeah, that's right. You can actually currently, if you have, for example, a Razor Pages application, you can have some components getting rendered out there and leverage that power of Blazor. And so this communication exists. And as you have said earlier, you already have the capability to pre-render some components in the server and bring them to the client. So yes, that communication is still there. And also, C# is still with Blazor. You can communicate with JavaScript in the two ways, actually. So now you have, this is a big advantage in .NET and Blazor over JS, because there you are in JS. Here you have this power of communication, so you can take advantage of that. And at the end, the last one is actually, .NET is well known for its NuGet package manager system, how easy it is, how simple it is, so to publish or to download or to update. So that's amazing. Actually, you can just go ahead and one command install packages. You don't care about the versioning because it's all NuGet is taking responsibility for all of this. And because of we are already stacked with Microsoft, the yearly updates, everything is documented, everything is great. And so switching from one version to another is something just piece of cake. Open the application, change the version of .NET Framework, update your libraries, you're just ready to go. It's a few minutes project, even if it's a big project or something like this. So, are there any questions before we move to the demo?
At this point, I think after the demo, I'd like to ask a few more questions so that our audiences understand how the communication between the Blazor and the JavaScript happens behind the scene.
Okay, that's awesome. So now I will switch back to my Visual Studio. So here now we are in the Visual Studio 2022. You can go ahead if you are on Mac or Linux, just using the VS Code or Visual Studio for Mac. But here, because we are on Windows, I'm using the full IDE. Now it's the 2022 version in the preview. So we can get started creating a new Blazor project by hitting on File, New, Project. So if we scroll down here a little bit, we can see that we have this Blazor WebAssembly application. And we have as well another option, which is Blazor Server. And as we have said, this is the full .NET Core application that have the client through the SignalR. And this is the full client-side application, which is actually the great thing that we will focus on. So we will click on Next. So here we can give it a name or whatever. So let's give it Blazor 6 as it is. Now let's click on Next. So here you can choose the framework version. Because I'm in 2022 preview, so it's only .NET 6, but after you create the application, it's very easy to change. And here we have a set of options for authentication. We are not going to get into this. Here we have a check called the progressive web application, which means my application could be installed on the devices and be open like in any app. So let's check this one. And ASP.NET Core hosted. We can talk quickly about this, which is actually this initialize your application with a client application, shared application, and API as well. And the client application doesn't need to be hosted separately, because it could be hosted within the API itself, and the API is actually serving it to the client. So the benefit of this is that you don't need to host two applications, even if the client has could be hosted in a static hosting. So after we click Create, so here we go. That was actually very easy to get started. And if you open here, this is our application. Actually, all the files are ready. We can see there are only a few over here. In the www root or www root, which is the root folder where all the assets are there, you can see that we have some CSS, some symbol data, and also we have this index.html. So if we open that, you can notice that it's a piece of HTML, and it's a normal page, as you can see. And here there is this dev with the ID app, which is actually very interesting. This is why it's called single page. Is it really a single page? Actually, yes, it's a single page, because when you load the application, only this page goes back to the client, and then everything's being handled over here within this dev, the components being dynamically rendered based on the data and the needs. So it's single page, yes. And we have here a set of pages, which are actually are Razor components. We have the shared folder from the name. Here you can find the shared stuff among your pages, like the layout, the nav menu, or you could have many other things. We have the app.razor, which is actually, this is the main component or the parent of all other components. So this one is being handled at the beginning, and it goes over here after the application runs, and then other content, it just goes here. So our components. And now the last thing to mention is program.cs, which is, as you know, every application, the main method is the starting point. So here it initializes the app component that we have talked about within that HTML page and setting up an HTTP client for us. And then it runs the application. So before we get into the code or something, let's just run it directly and see what .NET did for us directly out of the box. Because there is already some pages that covers some topics. So we run the application. This is the browser. This is the application that we have now. At this school, it's very famous. You will, whenever you start with Blazor, you will get ready for this purple actually. So here we have 3 different components that actually showing you 3 different things as a sample directly out of the box. We have, this is the full app component. This is the nav menu. This is the body, which changes, as you can see. Whenever we go, and as you can notice, nothing is actually getting refreshed or going to the server. Everything's happening locally. And we have this little icon over here that's called app available, install Blazor app 6, because it's a progressive web app. It could be installed. So let's try to click this app or click this button. And look at that. We already have it right now as a desktop application. So that's amazing. And it could work offline, actually. Even right now, if we cut the internet and doing something like this, we can open it directly from the start menu and start using it. So that's great. So this one shows to us how we can fit the data. This one shows us how we can change the variable and how the Blazor is taking responsibility of detecting those changes and rearranging the UI, just the part that has changed, which is actually very interesting. So let's take a look about how that counter page is actually working. So if you open it, you can see that it's a pretty small piece of code. This is the normal header and normal paragraph over here. Let's go in the current count. But here you have this amazing sample with this. So this is actually a variable, and the Razor syntax is, or the Razor editor allows you to write C# and HTML at the same time very powerfully. And I think this is definitely one of the best experiences that you can see across the GS or other web frameworks. Razor is very powerful in that combination between the code and HTML at the same time to have a great component. So this is the section where you can write your C# code. Here we have just a small variable, integer, and we have a normal function, .NET function. Any .NET developers is familiar with this stuff. So whenever we click on this function, we are just increasing the value within this current count by 1. And here in the UI, we bound this actually this value in the paragraph for this variable, and that's it. So whenever you click on the button, this one will increase, and directly Blazor will detect that this value has been changed, and it's going to increase that as well. So that's amazing, and this could be applied across all your applications. It's just like this. We can have a variable, for example. Oh, just as a sample, when we click on this increment count, we will change the value of this variable. And then we can show that over here. And then we have access for all our fields. Now let's try just to run this. So for every new .NET developer, the thing that you need to learn and have is just like learn how the components interact with each other, the authentication system, how you can send data from one component to another, and routing, and then you are just ready to go. All your .NET skills is 90% enough to get started building amazing apps. So if you go to counter, you can see right now it's saying hello, and this all happens by just like putting the variable out here. Now, whenever we will click on the button, this value will be changed. So click like this, and here we go. So everything's happened like magic, actually, because there is a very powerful engine behind the scenes detecting the changes and re-rendering the UI in an amazing behavior. So that's a very big, powerful point. So I think this is a very big chance for every .NET developer to go ahead and try this out and make great applications, because this is a very big opportunity.
Thanks, Ahmad. How's the integration with Azure Application Insight?
How is that?
The integration with Azure Application Insight, does it come naturally, or do you have to write some code? Or
okay, Azure Application Insight, actually currently no. What you can do is there is already right now a JavaScript libraries to interact with the Azure App Insights. So either you can take advantage of this, or what I personally do is actually the only thing I send to Azure App Insights is the exceptions and some interactions. So what I do, I have an endpoint in my API that whenever an exception happens over here, I cat this exception and send the request to that endpoint, which actually put it in the app insights. Or you can use the GS library, and the communication is very easy. We can finally just make a quick look about how we can get a JavaScript function to be called within this application. So I'll do that very quick. If we go over here, www.root, and let's create just a very simple JavaScript file. So I will click on add, new item, to JavaScript. See, I will call it demo.js. So over here, I'm going to remove this one. We'll add a function related to the window, the current on. So I will call it show alert and function alert hello from GS, and also console.log hello from GS. Save. Okay, so it's just a very normal and simple JavaScript function. So I will save that. Now let's go to the index.html and let's reference that file over here. So I can do that very quick by just doing like this, and here we go. Now we have access for this file. So let's save it. And let's go to the index.razor page. I will simply just create a basic button. I'll give it some little style from Bootstrap. This. And let's write some .NET code. Pivot, async task. Asynchronous function. So now, to be able to communicate with JavaScript in the two direction, we need to inject a service called IGS runtime. So inject, this is how we can inject something in the Razor component. So IGS runtime. Just like this. So this is an out-of-the-box solution that actually handling all the stuff that you need to communicate with a JavaScript function. So now it's something awaitable. So JS runtime dot We have invoke async in case our function returns something to us, and we have invoke void async, which is the case of our function. We just do like this, and now we can pass the name of the function, which actually I call the show alert. So let's go back to index and put show alert over here, like that, and we are just ready to go. The last thing to do is just to call this function from our bottom. So as you can notice, everything I do is very, very simple. Nothing new for any .NET developer or web developer as well. So, and we are ready to go. Let's run the application. So now if we click on hello, you can just see that hello from JS. And even if you open the developer tools, we can see that to write something, not the service worker. Okay, yeah, here we go. Hello from JS, it's after the alert. So that was very, very simple, right? The same way we did, you can write some little tasks to be done, and you can invoke some already existing actually JS plugins to here and just put an endpoint for it, and then you can use it in Blazor just directly out of the box. That's very simple. And so you can take advantage actually of every JS library existing out there without the need to rewrite it in C#. So this capability is always there for you. So we have some amazing already existing libraries for Blazor. If you can check MudBlazor, which is actually a very advanced material design UI library by the community. It's supported by everyone. This is the power of open source that actually wasn't there in the days of Silverlight. So you can build an amazing application very fast. Everything is ready. A lot of JS interaction is ready for you for those components. So you just write pure C#. And actually amazing. We have also and Design of Blazor. So you have charts, you have, and many of the JS big libraries like Chart.js and so on, they already have been migrated to Blazor through the community. So yeah, it's a lot of power is actually existing out there. And I think that was a very good introduction to cover all the basic things and getting started with this amazing technology. So if there is any questions before we...
That was great, Ahmad. That was a really great demo, really great presentation. I just have one more question, and I think we should be done for today. In regarding to when you call that JavaScript function, if you wanted to pass information into that function, how will we do that? Actually, because there might be some time we want to pass variables back and forth between.
That's right. That's right. Actually, the JS runtime is handling that very powerfully, so you can deal with this just normally. Like for example, as you can see here, there is an array of objects that you can just pass, and they are of type object, so you can pass anything. For example, I'll pass Microsoft Technical Trainer Community. And then over here, you can pass as many functions, parameters as you want. And in the JavaScript file, just receive this variable as it is. You have access to it. So it's just like that. So you can type. And this is it. Now, when you click, it will say hello from JS, Microsoft Technical Trainer Community. It is actually that simple.
Really great. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really cool, mate.
Yeah, actually it is. Blazor is a very amazing thing. I'm so amazed within it from more than 1.5 years. I'm now like fully on Blazor in my works, and I'm already building more than 3 production projects with Blazor WebAssembly. So yeah, it's very reliable.
Very cool, man.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Well, thank you very much for doing that for us and sharing this with the Trainer Community Channel. Looking forward to the next 2 sessions that you've got for us that are coming up fairly soon. Yas is going to host you on those sessions, but I wanted to be here just to learn off you. And I tell you what, for someone who doesn't normally do development work or write code, I actually got a lot out of that. A lot of what you guys were talking about made a lot of sense out of me. Sorry, it made a lot of sense to me, I should say. So really appreciate you doing that for us, Ahmad. And Yas, thanks for taking out the time as well to help make this much more relevant for developers. So yeah, thanks again, Ahmad.
Yeah, thanks for you too. And I'm really excited for the upcoming sessions and to talk more and hopefully to see more and more audience that's interested in this amazing stuff that you do, either Blazor and Azure and so on. So yeah, thanks again. And it was glad to be here, and see you in the upcoming sessions.
Well, we'll see you then, Ahmad. So for everybody else, please like and subscribe to our channel, and we'll be back very soon with some more sessions for you. Bye.
Bye-bye.